My name is Rick Shumaker, and I'm a paddler. And I've been paddling for a long time. That doesn't make me better or worse at it, but it does mean that it's part of who I am. Um, I have a passion about being on the water, being near the water, being in the water, swimming. Um, and I think it's a natural part of being a human being. But especially with my family, you know, I have a note here that says, "Okay, Rick, a good story has a beginning, a middle, an end, and a point." So that's my goal here today is to try and achieve those four things. So a few generations of my family in Binghamton area, um, great grandpa Gardner immigrated to Binghamton all the way from Green, New York, via the Shenango Canal. And another time, another fun thing to do is the history of the waterways around here. Um, and he settled in the area. And then his son, my grandfather, Harold, was born in 1898 down on Helen Street and moved to Riverside Drive for a while um, because his father was an architect and a builder, helped build lots of things around here. That's another subject for a whole thing. H. Sumner Gardner and the buildings he designed and built all over the west side, downtown Binghamton. Anyway, Riverside Drive. Uh, Grandpa Harold lived there for a time. And when he was 8 or 10, so which is, what is that, 1908 or 1910 or something. Um, he made his father really mad because he bought a canoe for 50 cents, which was a lot of money. And it was broken. So he fixed it and sold it for $1. And great grandpa wasn't quite so mad. So one of Harold Gardner's, my grandfather's peers, was Ed Link growing up around here. Um, and they would go down to the river and play around with boats. I believe it's The Wind in the Willows. Who is the author? With Wind in the Willows. There's a quote from there that there's nothing more fun than messing around in boats. And that as a kid, you're swimming and you're playing, and the boat gets swamped, and you empty it, and you laugh and you learn. Well, I did that in scouts and with family and going to lakes and visiting friends. Dad bought my older sister Barb, a Grumman aluminum canoe, probably made up in Marathon, New York. Um, and I regularly borrowed that, and I still have it, as a matter of fact. Okay, so I have to stick to the script or I'll get long-winded. Uh, Dad bought a Grumman canoe, and we all went to lakes and rivers and streams and family and friends. And this is the beginning of this is about my journey of trying to understand myself on this amazing planet among all of this interesting life. Um, I believe rivers and water in general are the lifeblood of uh, the stuff that the creator intended to put together so that we have life as we know it. And it's not just us, by the way. These systems of water are part of the life itself. The thing that we think of as life as plants and animals and critters would not function without these cycles of materials and things. So water is a passion for me. Um, let's let's go. Where's my thing? That's the one I want to see. Okay, there are two views. Um, I've scattered some photographs in the beginning of this thing, which has too many words. And then toward the end, there are lots of pictures on any. I have to time myself and be careful. Um, every one of these photographs is from someplace I've been, except one somebody else took. And I could give a talk or sit and have a beer and tell stories about any one of these places, the the kind of paddling that occurred, the kind of people, uh, and I don't seem to remember these stories much until I see the picture, and it's like, oh yeah, okay. Um, this is a really important quote concerning rivers. I'm a river guy. Other folks like to paddle the lakes, go up to the Adirondacks, go out to the ocean. Um, I Barbara and Steve aren't here. Some people get on cruise ships and go for weeks and weeks. That's different. I was going to wear, and I forgot to wear my shirt that says human powered. Part of part of this whole paddling business is it's you and you're connected with what you're doing. And that human power rather than a machine or a motor or something. Nothing wrong with machines and motors and pit, geared pedaling devices. Um, anyway, traveling around the country. This is a wonderful Charles Corral. I it, would it be incorrect to assume that everybody sees this? There are people. Some people can't see anything. I started Charles Corral, the wonderful TV news guy, said, I started out thinking of America as highways and state lines. As I got to know it better, I began to think of it as rivers. With this thought in mind, um, when I look at someone and smile and say, "Hey," when we ask each other where you're from, as paddlers meeting along a campground or along the river or at some environmental concern meeting, we don't answer with, "Oh, I'm from Binghamton." I answer, I'm from the part of the Susquehanna River watershed, where the Shenango meets the Susquehanna. And they say, oh, okay. So 1,000 years ago, or a couple thousand years ago, or more, the um, the people who lived here may have referred to villages or towns or cities. There were some pretty big native communities around here, by the way. Um, they'd say, oh, I'm 2 days up the Tyophonia. Oh, okay. I know exactly where you are. We'd say Cortland now, but so this is what Charles Carl was referring to. All right, why paddling? It's cheap. Mind, body, spirit. Um, and I like to give the caveat that I'd love to talk about this triangle being a Trinitarian and all that. God, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Um, but the scientists are saying to us more and more the mind, body, let's see, mind is the thing that makes the decisions and thinks thoughts and cares and loves and things like that. Um, our scientists, biologists are kind of finding out that this brain thing is mind. So sorry if that blows anybody's. But the mind and the body are probably kind of the same thing. And this spirit, I have never seen one, um, but I know I have one, and I know I need to keep it in balance with these other two things that I don't understand. So being a human is a challenge. And I have helped keep myself in balance by going outside and paddling. Next. Now, this is where I was going to launch into a long story about the environment and the value of water and how important being good stewards of the planet are, and how crucial it is that as humans, we understand that thing that we're responsible for, even if we don't understand it. How does that work? So when the politician or the professor or the teacher or the preacher or the community member council says, oh yeah, you know, that environment stuff, that's nice, but we got really important problems. And I love to say to them, hey, what are you doing Saturday morning for a couple hours? I'd love to show you something. And I get them in appropriate clothing and a life jacket, and I take them out to the river and canoe a section and see things they've never seen before and feel the quiet and understand the connection. And all of a sudden, they realize that they own it as well as I do. And maybe they'll vote a little bit differently the next time an important issue comes up. So I was going to go into that long diatribe, but I won't. You're supposed to laugh because I just did. Anyway, that involves each of us becoming more informed in order to understand what is going on here with water, air, climate. What's our role? What can we do about it? It's cheap. You can spend lots of money. I have a friend who retired, and after borrowing my $200 or $300 boat canoe for a few years, I don't miss it. I have lots of them. He went out and spent thousands of dollars on a really fancy boat that he paddles on the lakes in the Adirondacks with. Well, it's really light. It's made of a material that's really light. So it's easy to carry from one of the lakes to the next lake. I solved the problem of carrying the boat from one place to another by paddling mostly on rivers. Let the river be your guide. It's not just a cliche. So I just have to put the boat on the top of the car. Transportation, camping, fees, tents and things. I'm an outdoor guy, so I have most of this stuff. You got to take care of your gear. We've got some paddles over here. Paddles are easier to carry than boats. I was going to bring one canoe in this room, but I ran out of time yesterday when I was going to do that. So as far as health, you know, there's the physical health, mental health, and the spiritual health that I mentioned earlier. This interesting triad that I don't understand, but I have it, and I have to pay attention to it, or I'll get sick. Sick in the head, sick in the body, or sick in the spirit. That's why we have rabbis and preachers and teachers to help us with the spiritual aspects. In any case, there's lots and lots of evidence, and I quote some of it here. But there's not just personal health, my health, your health, but there's the health of a group. How are we doing here at Trinity with caring for one another? How are we doing being good stewards of this place, this building, this infrastructure. How are we doing talking to each other about that, caring and asking hard questions lovingly? That's group health. Let's keep that as high as we can. Um, there's community health. Where does paddling belong in the community? Where does uh, outdoor recreation in general? One well-meaning economics development fellow said, "Oh, Rick, you're so passionate about rivers and recreation and doing it safely and doing it appropriately. We're gonna build a series of bars along the river downtown, and then people can go and they can have a real good time on the river." It's like, no, no, you're missing the whole point. I have a beer right alongside of anybody else on the planet after I'm done with my pet. One of my new favorite short couple-hour trips is from Shenango Forks at the uh, Department of Environmental Conservation, um, uh, New York State access point there. And if you don't know that, then you probably know Davy's Last Chance Saloon, which is just across the Tioughnioga. Then paddling downstream just a few miles on a whatever Sunday afternoon, or actually you can get it done after work in the spring or summer when there's more light, ending up at the Beer Tree restaurant and having some of the food they have there and the delicious beverages. This means staging a car, having a shuttle, we call it, and getting from one place to another with a friend that we'll go over someday. Health, group health, community health, the discussions about where to build access points along the river. There are maps. I've got buckets of maps on most of the northeast of what we call Northeast United States. Most of actually what is called the Susquehanna River watershed. So if I ask Rob and Joan Lacey where they live, they'd say, well, we moved from the north side of the Susquehanna River Valley near the what's the nearest creek? We've covered the mostly up. Most of the creeks are all covered up in urban areas. Moved over to the south side of the valley. But anyway, understanding valleys and watersheds, we'll show you a map so you can get that better. We're all connected. This is one of the messages here, that paddling strengthens the understanding of our connection with the earth and one another. You don't paddle alone, you paddle with someone. That emphasizes our interdependence, not just for relying on someone for our needs, but relying on each other for our fun, for all these things. I loan equipment out to people all the time. This is a life jacket or personal flotation device. I'll go wait this in front of the laptop. Life jacket. I have a bag full of them. They're not that expensive. This is a little more expensive one. Actually, I won this one at a raffle. Life jacket, paddle, and a boat are the things you need. And I have lots of them and loan them out to people and saying to them, you can only borrow this if you can explain to me that you know how to use it. And they say, well, I guess when I was 10, Dad took us out on a lake one time, sort of. I said, okay, well, we're going to schedule a lesson. And we go out and have fun on a pond or on a quiet section of the river before they go out on their own or with their friends. It's community, region. It's good stuff. I have to move along. Talk. I believe this is true. I have experienced this. And I'll bet you can all read. So I'm not going to read it to you. There's a practically illegible link down there to an organization that one of many educational or informative websites that have a lot of, you can learn a lot about it by reading, but going and doing it is what I'm about. So this really works. I like that the doctors sat down to write an article about outdoor therapy, and he was kind of stressed out about it, so I went outdoors. That's all right. Physical stuff. Oh, Sue, are you still there? Good. Low impact. It's not. Um, when I broke my heel back in 2010, and I was recovering, I said to the doctor, "Hey, will I be able to run again?" He said, "Yeah. Well, no, yeah, maybe not on the pavement." Well, I never ran much on pavement anyway. I was a cross country track runner back in the day, and ran on grass and soil and cinders and things. Um, which has less impact, less pounding on your joints. Canoeing, um, this may sound strange, and you may or may not believe me, and I don't know that I understand it. Sue Carpenter can probably explain it. But if I have a low back problem from shoveling the wrong way or twisting the wrong way, the best thing I can do is to go canoeing. Kayaking helps a little, but canoeing is the best. I'm not sure why. Someone who knows anatomy and physiology, physical therapy better than I do could explain it. So for this paddler, uh, it's it's relief and rejuvenation and actual physical healing. And this is you can read that, right? Right. Good for your body. Abs, biceps, where are the triceps? Triceps? That's right. You know these things. All right. Little anatomy quiz here. Lots to be learned about. Um, one of the things that comes up again and again is that the gentle repeated motion of paddling. So what I'm doing now, you could probably see me at home, um, is the motion of holding a kayak paddle. Sorry, at home. Oh, well, you can see. I'll face away from you as if you're sitting behind me. So it's this gentle motion. There's no herky jerky. Oh, I'm going to hurt myself. Well, don't do that. If it hurts, don't do that. That would be in a kayak, and I would be sitting. And sitting in a kayak locks up, huh?
Sitting on the floor is something you can still do.
Yes, but I didn't get up yet. So sitting in a kayak, and this is about the position. Your the bones in your bottom are pretty much in place. They're not moving. All right. So it's more fixed in rotating the upper part of the body. And it takes rotating. You can paddle like this. Notice my back is not rotating. I'm just using my arms. That'll happen for about an hour, and then your arms will give out. The small muscles in your arms are not as resilient long-term, what's the word? As the large muscles in our back. So we use the large muscles in our back and shoulders together with our arms. Anyway, that's kayak instruction number 3 or 5. Lots of different paddles here. I prefer canoeing. And there are different paddles for different kinds of canoeing. And we can talk about that all day. And if you go paddling with me, we will. Oh, it does say, it says it right on the screen. So I can say buttocks, right? Gluteus maximi. That would be 2 of them, right? You can do this paddling thing, whether it's in a raft or whether it's in a kayak or a canoe, at your own pace. You can begin slowly. You can say, "Oh, this is a nice level of I want to take 2-hour trips on a Sunday afternoon with somebody else that organizes it. Welcome to the Awaga Canoe Club. Well, I want to go once in a while. I want to go on a 3-day outing to the Adirondacks. Well, there's a pretty large group of folks from the hiking club that was here last week who regularly go up to the Adirondacks for 3 or 4 days. They camp in one spot. They put their boats in the lake, paddle the lakes and small creeks of the Adirondacks. I'm a river guy. I like to do longer trips or different kinds of trips. So I'm on the river. The point here is you can take it at your own pace. You can make it intense, physically aggressive. I also went through learning how to paddle in whitewater. Whitewater is very challenging and would knock you over if you don't have experience and practice at staying upright and navigating the rapids. For me, a whole nother discussion is about the metaphor of controlling your boat in the rapids of life. And it's true. And it's good stuff. And you can do as much or as little as you want. This is the one picture of all of these pictures that I borrowed from Getty. I liked it because I think I can still do that. I don't know how long. Yeah, there we go. But yeah, really. Health, mind, body, spirit. It's fun. Well, this time of year, some friends of mine down in Pennsylvania on a pond piled up the snow and made this sculpture, which is just wonderful.
It was people.
Well, those of us who do this kind of thing, we see this all the time with real people. There's a small snow person in the front just holding their arms over. Ah! What? There's lots of ways to go about doing this paddling. Racing. If you look at these patterns, might want to ask, wait a minute. How come that one's so much longer than the other? Well, that's because with this one, this canoe paddle, you're sitting down. Or kneeling. I actually prefer kneeling. Notice my, what did it say? The buttocks are moving. That keeps my back in shape. All that stuff. That's whitewater canoe paddle. Great. And this was made by my friends up in Bainbridge who stand up on a paddleboard. They stand up, and that's why it's so darn long, so it can reach the water. And you've probably seen them on lakes or on the river, people standing on what looks like a surfboard and going along.
Have you done that much? Paddle,
Yeah.
stand up,
Uh,
stop?
yeah, I was on a trip on, I think it was a Tiopano River with a group. And a friend of mine had just purchased an inflatable stand-up paddleboard. Well, inflatable sounds like, oh, it's like a balloon. They're solid as a rock. So we got halfway through that trip and had stopped for a lunch snack break. And I said, hey, can I try that? And my friend Cindy said, sure. Well, it was so much fun. I paddled it for the rest of the trip. And they're incredibly stable. They seem I should say inherently stable. People, one of the first things that non-paddlers say is, oh, aren't they tippy? Well, let me teach you how to make it not tippy. Tippiness depends on the skill of which you have, the way in which you use your skill, and a little bit about the boat. It's not all about the boat. Canoe, kayak, raft, stand-up paddleboard, and if the Carls were here, I'd say this does not include a cruise ship. This is all in the context of you can take it at your own pace, and I graduated up through the whitewater paddling and whitewater instructing for both kayaks and canoes. And that's an adrenaline rush. And it's not fear of dying because I'm highly trained at both paddling, navigating, and rescuing others who have, and that's the way as you get to the more and more challenging paddling, it gets to be a smaller and smaller group. And it quickly becomes evident that in order to be successful at having fun at these more challenging levels of paddling, you need to learn your rescue skills. Well, what is that? Well, what does that have to do with meeting the challenge yourself? You cannot meet the challenge yourself without others. When someone receives a compliment on a whitewater river, hey, you're a really good paddler. And the answer from the experts is we're all just in between swims. And the swim is when you get knocked out of your boat and you're floating down the river, and the guy next to you throws you a rope to help you get out. We're all just between swims. It is fun, but it's another metaphor for our lives, the challenges that we meet. How are you going to get by? Throw me a rope, would you? Help. Somebody's going to catch me on this last one. Phil the treasurer is going to say, wait a minute. In the first slide, you said it was cheap, low cost. Well, that's the way I do things. I buy used cars to pay the mechanic instead of the banker. No offense to the bankers, especially the late Kent Turner, who was a banker. I guess his dad started Norwich Bank and Trust. Anyway, you can spend a lot of money on gear, but you don't have to. And that's another sliding scale kind of thing. Okay, everybody read this. Learn from others. Oh, I stole this from the Victoria, Australia. They had some really good written material. Swimming is crucial. Wish me luck helping my grandson learn how to swim up at the university every Wednesday for the next couple of months. And talk to others. It's a pretty friendly crowd. Paddlers are pretty good people. And river people are pretty good people, even if they're not paddlers. We know that because we live close to rivers, and those of us that go outside and play and pray and play meet river people all the time, and they'll help you. The whole talk can be had on history of paddling, not just from a recreation point of view, but transportation, commerce. And these days, for the last 100 so years, 120, 50 years, we're continuing to use water for hydropower. The rock bottom dam's purpose is to keep a pool of water for the city of Binghamton's water intake. So it doesn't go in the summertime. Everybody knows that. And then down below Lourdes Hospital, near the university, is the treatment plant where all the wastewater for this whole area is treated or not. I get a daily bulletin on the discharge from that plant and its water quality. Subject for another time. Well, it's a subject that happens every day, whether we talk about it or not. So here's a great picture that's in the Library of Congress. It's 180 degree, one of these funny, see it, Kathy? Funny distorted 180 degree pictures. This is looking north up the Shenango River Valley, and this is looking south to the confluence. So this is Main Street. There's Fowler's down here with that little knob. You see that little knob? That's the press building, Security Mutual building. I like this picture because there's a great story, family story about my great grandfather got the job to build the upper 2 stories of the Fair store over here. And he was a teenager running a steam crane and couldn't see where they were lifting these huge southern white pine beams to build the second running thing. And the crane is where you couldn't see. Well, apparently one of these beams slipped in its cradle and was coming right down for the cab where Grandpa was operating the steam crane. And he said the big Polish man on the crew reached in and grabbed me and pulled me out moments before this thing came through. One of many escapes that my grandfather, who lived to 108, and great grandpa's mill was right up here, where he made for a time most of the windows and door frames and all of the spiral fluted supports. If there are any still around, I think they're mostly gone by now, have had to be replaced. But at one time, if you saw a spiral fluted column holding up somebody's porch, it was made in Granddad's mill right up here. He did lots. He worked for Isaac Perry and the famous architecture, worked up on State Hospital, lots of that. Another story for another time. We're not, oh yeah, people. And history. Safety. Okay, I'm going to read this one. Always wear a personal flotation device, PFD or life jacket, when you're on the water. Always. Any questions? Every year, the American Canoe Association puts together a report of people who are lose their lives while paddling. Yes, you're way ahead of me. People that wear life jackets don't drown. Skill level, go with somebody else, prepare, and have fun. I mean, people from all over the country want to paddle the 444 miles that is between Cooperstown, New York, and Havre de Grace, Maryland. This is what's generally considered the length of the Susquehanna River. That's only if you follow that imaginary white line down the center of the river. Oh, okay. Well, anyway. So there's a list of dams that you have to go around, or you might be dangerously injured. There are hazards on the river. And Binghamton has 4 of them. Aren't we lucky? Rock Bottom Dam, going from upstream to downstream, is the first one. And so people say, hey, I'm going to through paddle the Susquehanna River. How do I get around those dams in Binghamton? And they say, send an email message to paddlerick@gmail.com. And I send them these drawings of how you get around Rock Bottom Dam, the confluence pipe at the South Washington Bridge, Talbot's, everybody know where Talbot, Vestal Plaza. You see that white line? That white line is a pipe crossing. If you flush a toilet on the west side of Binghamton, it goes through that pipe to the treatment plant. And that, whatever engineers designed that thing way back in the day, calculated the gradient of gravity flow very precisely so that the pipe sticks up out of the river. Come on, guys. Otherwise, they probably would have had to build a pumping station, which is far more expensive than gravity flow. So who cares? It's in the river. Nobody cares about the river. Well, there are those of us that do. And so we have to contend with these types of pipes crossings in a few places. Gowdy Station over in Johnson City, it's now called the AES West. This shows portaging, carrying, whatever, walking your boat around on the right side. By the way, going downstream, looking downstream, this is river right, and that's river left. Looking upstream, this is river right, and this is river left. River left is river left. So always looking downstream, kind of like stage stuff. Yeah, the better way to go these days is under the railroad bridge and go down to a pool that's down here. This used to be dangerous, but it's less dangerous, and there's a nice. So people call me or send me email, and I send them these maps, and I said, let me know when you're here. And I take a few hours off to go and meet them at Sandy Beach off of Conklin Ave, Sandy Beach Park, and paddle with them down to here. If I get it planned right, the car is pre-staged at the end over at this little hill park, Johnson City, right over here. So I hop in the car and go back into work, which is 2 minutes from there. All right, I have to stop talking and move more quickly because I've got 10 minutes and I want to leave time for Q's and A's. Most of the time when I'm on the river, this is all I have. Paddle, bag, PFD, which is under there. Now that blue thing, see that blue thing? Essential piece of equipment in the summertime for especially when in groups, especially when in groups with young people. It's called a boat bailer. You put the tip of this blue tube down in the bottom of the boat and pull up on a lever, and it takes the water out of the inside of your boat that you can then discharge into the river. Or you could fill the device with river water and discharge it into the people in the boat next to you, which is great fun. Three folks from Binghamton went to Holland in 2014 and paddled 300 miles, I think it was, of the 11 cities tour. Here's a brief tour. If you're interested in seeing each of those 11 cities in detail and more about the food and the fun that we had, just three Americans. There are, what, 200 or 300 of us on that trip? And three Americans. We were famous. I asked the young people who they, most of the Dutch people, especially the young people, speak English at least as well as I do, if not better. Crazy. So I said to some of these young people as we're camping in the evening, and there was a truck that would take our camping gear along. So while we were on the river or on the canals, we were just enjoying being there and paddling along. We rented those kayaks. I didn't take one with me. So I said to these young people, how am I going to learn Dutch if you're just speaking English to me all the time? Well, don't you know, these very nice people were brutal to me for the rest of the trip about learning Dutch. And I'm still working on it. Elf is 11, Steden is cities, Toch is tour, Elf, Steden, Toch. No, I wasn't there in 1985. I was there in 2014. This is a map of the different, the 11 cities. Hans Brinker Anderson, the Silver Skates. Some of you read that story when you were children. If you won this race, the 11 cities tour, you won the Silver Skates. For some reason that we are still studying, the ice doesn't form on the canals anymore. can't have an ice skating race over 11 cities if there's no ice. The climate seems to be changing. But that's a subject for another day. Although we need to address that subject every day. Okay, so no ice. What do? There are people that come from all over the world to bicycle these 11 old cities, and some of us do it by canal. There are the three Americans renting our kayaks. Now, sorry about that, but this picture is, I can't say it. I forgot the word already. My Dutch is that bad. This is a pool. This is a sort of a sand beach. These are ramps that come off of a, and this person is on a pole about 15 feet in the air after running across this ramp, grabbing this pole in order to do this sport in Holland called canal leaping. And it's this word that's about that long, and I'm not sure I can say it properly. But it's a competition. And you can imagine with a country covered with canals, how are you going to get from one side to the other? You can walk down to the bridge that's 3 miles down there? No, you're going to leap across it. So it was a lot of fun to meet them and watch them. We ate too much food and enjoyed it. Can you imagine? I can imagine living in a place like this and commuting to work with my boat or canoe or kayak. Every bridge had flowers on it. The big bridges, the small bridges, they like their bridges. And there are zillions of them. This is one of my favorite pictures of all time. There's my friend Helena Guerin, who's from Binghamton, and she was born in Leeuwarden, Netherlands, which is part of the connection. You've got the canoe, you've got the canal boat, and the windmill, and this person looking up saying, "What are you doing?" Here we are getting camping along the river, getting ready to go. A lot of old history in these old cities. Here's Helena, an intrepid person, one of my heroes. Helen and I have paddled most of the rivers in the Susquehanna River watershed. That's not as easy as it sounds. There are dozens of them. Some people took rowing shells. This is a rowing shell on this Elfstedentocht. It's a great big one. There was a canoe there that had 26 people on it. It was half the size of this room. A lot of fun. Critters along the way and different kinds of windmills. They have not only tulips, but they have poppies and lots of other stuff. And half of this country is below sea level. Got to have a sunset at the end of every trip. Okay. Susquehanna sojourns were wonderful. They're ongoing because of the seeds that they planted in every community along the way. Had a lot of fun every year organizing, planning, guiding 50 to 100 people for 4 to 8 days on the river. And the thing that is special for me is you don't hop on a bus at the end of the paddling day and go to a campground. The planners of the planners of the trip that I like organize it so that you camp where you finish. And in the morning, you get back in the boat that you just left, pack up your gear, put it on a truck, get back on the boat, go to the safety talk, and travel down again. It's a contiguous or connected trip. And it leads to an understanding of these watersheds in a different way than hopping in a car every day. It also builds a connection to the river, the outdoors, and yourself and those with you. And this is a really cool map. I got to talk about it really quickly. Some of you may recognize the curve of the Appalachian Mountains. This little white line is the outline of the Susquehanna, or excuse me, the Chesapeake Bay watershed. This is the Atlantic Ocean. This is the Delmarva Peninsula, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia. The Chesapeake Bay is sort of a remnant of the very, very ancient remnant of the terminus or mouth of the Susquehanna River. This is the Susquehanna River. It goes north through Pennsylvania. You can see these black lines of Pennsylvania. And then the main stem goes over through Scranton and then zigzags its way up into Sayre, Pennsylvania, then across the top to Binghamton, then back down into Susquehanna, Pennsylvania, then up to Cooperstown. Lots of rivers, lots of streams, lots of stories. Great place to paddle. Some people build their own boats. Isn't that gorgeous? Fun to paddle too. I got to paddle that boat. Here we are planting oysters on the Patuxent River. They care about their environment too. We work together on these trips. A lot of fun. This fellow with the yellow hat, Elmira College paid him to come and recruit students every year for years. The man in the back with the blue hat is Alan Quant, who is a pioneer paddling instructor. Race on the Red Mow is a bunch of wacky people that get together in the cold, snow, ice. There's one of them. That would be me. Oh, let's see. Half of the people are serious paddlers, racers, because it's a sanctioned 7-mile race. Half of the people just want to get their boat wet for the first time. And the third half are mostly locals who come out, drink beer, build campfires along the edge of the river. And if somebody goes in and gets wet, they're there to throw them a rope and pull them out and get them dry by the campfire and send them back on their way. It's great. It's not that far away. Whoop, wrong way. Here's my friend, Dan, at the beginning of the race. Dan Corman is a mountain man, lives near Clearfield, Pennsylvania, on the west branch of the Susquehanna. The west branch is 240 some odd miles long and is a wild place. And it's gorgeous. And there are elk out there. If you're interested in seeing more about that, I can easily put together a presentation about that. So this is the beginning of the race on the Red Bone. Some inspiring paddlers. Steve Bush from Shenango Forks is a great guy. We taught together. I was his assistant in teaching the university classes for 20 some odd years. Inspiring man, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and meeting up there at the gym and getting the students to take their final exam, which is going to some real whitewater, taking them from whitewater, from which end of the paddle do I put in my hand, to whitewater in 6 weeks. No, and Steve had this method and it worked. We had a blast. Here's one of the trips we took down the Lehigh River to that gorge. And this is, we live in an area that's pool drop. And so this is part of the pool. And then down around the bend is the drop where the rapids come. That's why we're in these short little, we call them whitewater playboats. Other classes, we taught canoeing. These are my friend Bob Gonzalez and Russell. What the heck's Russell? And so teaching by example. This is the lesson of teaching by example. Some of the students and Steve at a waterfall. Another inspiring paddling friend is Peter Brown. Most of you know who I'm talking about, but there are a couple that might not. So this is the famous Peter Brown that you've heard about that you may not know. He was the organist and choir director here that built excellent programs and built an understanding of excellence. I knew him as my paddling buddy. He came along on many, isn't that great? I have, this is inspiring to me because this is the student saying, I want to be like Peter when I grow up. We made him wear a helmet on this trip. He wasn't real happy about it, but it was an example for the students. He gave me that boat. It's in my backyard. And this is his stepson, Derek, who came along with us one time. I just like the composition of that picture. And that's the end of that. That's the end of that. And the expression that we say amongst friends is, see you on the river. I'm sorry I didn't leave time for questions. If you want to see any more of any of this, let me know.